Hello and welcome in for another episode of Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. If you are joining me here today on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be here with me. Make sure you throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, tell me how my takes are terrible, leave me some feedback on some of these takes, or tell me what you think on some of them. Would love to hear from you guys. Give me any and all feedback that I can get as I continue to try and grow this page. You're probably noticing I'm also not in my normal setup. The studio that I normally record out of is getting a little bit of maintenance done. I am the least important thing that uses that area, so some other things that need to be fixed for other things that we use it for. So I'm coming to you here today from my office. As you can see, probably some of my posters and things behind me. So today we're talking all NBA, guys. We talked a lot of WNBA on Tuesday after the draft and the free agency. Our NBA playoffs start this weekend, so I want to touch on some of those play-in games before we get into the playoff bracket, and we're just going to go through that bracket. I'm going to give you my picks, my predictions for each round by round, go all the way until we have my champion, which is a little bit maybe of a surprise for some. So we'll get into that here shortly. But play-in news, not tons and tons of time we're going to spend on this, but how awesome was it to watch the Warriors and a vintage Steph Curry performance and Draymond Green, even if it's just for one more night, one more game that we got it for. Just absolutely, if you're a young kid, if you're like 20 years old or younger, and you either didn't watch or you don't remember super well the 2015-16 Warriors teams, it was really cool to have Steph and Draymond come back against the Clippers, win their play-in game as the 10 seed. Obviously, I don't necessarily anticipate them to beat the Phoenix Suns tonight, or even if they do make much noise in that first round against Oklahoma City. But really, really cool to watch Steph and Draymond have kind of a vintage throwback performance, particularly as I've talked on the show a little bit. I'm a huge Steph Curry fan, was a huge 2015-16 era Warriors fan with him and Clay and Draymond all there. So really, really cool for me to kind of watch that. It felt just like a throwback to that time period. And if you didn't tell me any better, I wouldn't have guessed that that was a 9-10 play-in game. You could have told me that that was high intensity game 7 of a second round series or something like that, and I would have believed it based on the intensity, the way those guys were playing, the way Draymond locked down Kawhi. Looked like just vintage Draymond defending, and obviously Steph doing what Steph does with 38 points, including the dagger 3 over Brook Lopez, who the instant replay, the phantom cam of that shot is just insane. He's shooting it obviously over big 7-foot-plus Brook Lopez on the step back. It's just fantastic. He freaking falls into the stands. You see him looking at the fans asking, like, did it go in? Did it go in? As the whole stadium's going crazy or is pissed because he just hit that shot against their team. So really, really cool. Awesome vintage moment from Steph, Draymond, and the Warriors. They're probably in line for a butt kicking tonight against Phoenix. I think Phoenix is rolling. They're a little bit more rested. They have that extra day of rest after their play-in game. And I was shocked to see Phoenix lose their first play-in game. So this is probably the end of the road for the Warriors tonight here on Friday. But you never know. If you have 30 on your team and you have Draymond playing like that for individual games, you never know. I think they'll struggle if they do win it. Obviously, you go against Oklahoma City, everyone's going to struggle against them. So I think it probably ends if they make that first round playoff series, obviously. But it'd be pretty cool to see them just capture one more kind of pelt on the wall, if you will, and get themselves out of the play-in here as the 10 seed that really looked like they were going nowhere and get to that first round series. And you never know. With Steph Curry, like I just said, if he's on the floor, you have a chance to win. I think the rosters are very different in favor of Oklahoma City if that matchup ends up happening. But regardless, you're probably seeing the Thunder win in 4, maybe 5 if a team can steal one from them there in that first round. But really cool to watch a vintage Warriors performance. I love Steph Curry. Not much more you can say about it. Just in my world, I know the numbers and things don't match it up. He's my GOAT. He's my favorite of all time. I think he's the greatest. So just really, really cool to see that one more time on a big stage. So we had that. We had the Hornets winning their play-in game, which was just freaking wild. And obviously the big talk from that one, beating the Heat in overtime with the LaMelo Ball layup at the end. Miles Bridges block to steal the win after the LaMelo bucket on the other end to win it for the Hornets. The big news from that one, obviously, with LaMelo injuring, kind of tripping, pulling on the leg of Bam Adebayo as he went down early in that game. So a lot of talk about it. I'm sure if you're watching this, I'm sure you've seen all sorts of perspective from different people on LaMelo's situation. I don't care to get too much into that, to be quite honest. I think the takes are out there. LaMelo has shown a lot of immaturity here early on in his career. Super talented player. No one's going to deny those things of his talent, his potential, all of those things. but just another incident where kind of showing some immaturity on and off the court for LaMelo. So disappointing to see that, have that kind of put a little cloud over that game with Bam Adebayo not being there and being out for the majority of that one. But all in all, my big takeaway from that was that kind of kicked off our play-in excitement in these crazy games. And I was talking to some coworkers here this morning who are not NBA fans and not necessarily NBA haters, but they lean more towards being an NBA hater, and nobody cares. They don't play any defense. They don't try all this stuff, which I understand why you have a little bit of a gripe through the grind of the regular season. But I was telling them that the play-in games so far have just been absolutely fantastic, and they've been absolute great theater and have just been down to the wire games that are super, super exciting. So I think we're in store for a great playoffs coming up. We've already seen it in the play-in games, and it started with that Charlotte-Miami game and then has carried over all the way through Warriors-Clippers the other night. So hopefully we get a couple more good play-in games tonight here on Friday, and then hopefully that's leading us into an awesome NBA playoffs where hopefully there'll be lots of actions, hopefully several long series. I know particularly in this first round, I'm predicting, and we're likely to see a handful of short series, but hopefully by that second round of the tournament, I'm hoping to see some of these series go 6 and 7 and give us really good, entertaining, close games down the stretch. So that's my hope. Those are my big play-in stories. Not a whole ton to go through there. Obviously, we'll have our final play-in teams who will get the 8 seeds in the East and the West happening tonight. But full disclosure, probably not a shocker to many of you if you're watching this, I don't have either of those teams, whoever that might be on either side, winning their series. So with that said, let's get into our NBA playoff bracket predictions. And we're going to start in the Eastern Conference. I live out here on the West Coast, so I follow the Western Conference a little bit more, have more time to watch a lot of the Western Conference games. So I'm going to start in the East. We'll go through the Eastern Conference. I'll kind of rattle through these a little bit quicker, and then I'll maybe have a little bit more analysis for our Western Conference teams that I've had a little bit more time to deep dive into this year. So we're starting in the Eastern Conference. We've got Pistons are going to play the 8 seed, which will be the winner of Magic Hornets tonight. And I think there's a chance that the Hornets could pull off the win against the Magic. The Magic have been really struggling here down the stretch. They've just not lived up to expectations that we had after the season that they had last year. Paolo Banchero hasn't quite grown into that role that we all thought he was going to. But regardless, I think whatever team comes out of that one is going to get, for lack of a better term, curb stomped by the Pistons. So I think the Pistons, kind of one of those teams that, including myself, I said it in an episode last week, that with the Cade injury, if he wasn't going to be back, then I definitely don't trust the Pistons. With him coming back, I still don't know if I trust them down the line to beat some of these more established teams. But in this first round, I think they're just too good. They play too hard, and they have too much depth on their roster. So I have the Pistons winning their matchup probably in 5 games, if I had to guess. So I think you probably have a Charlotte or an Orlando maybe winning that game 3 when you go home to their arena, win 1 at home in front of the home fans. And then I think Detroit will impose their will defensively and with that depth and probably have that one wrapped up in 5 going back to Detroit. So I have Detroit taking down the winner of Magic Hornets. My first upset, and one of my only upsets happening in the first round, is I'm going to pick the Toronto Raptors to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think Toronto, being up in Canada and not having a brand name, huge-time star, really flies under the radar. I am from Buffalo, New York, just about an hour and a half south of Toronto area, so I have lots of friends that follow them closely. I went to the Raptors 2019 championship parade up there in Toronto, so I follow them maybe a little bit closer than some other people would, but they have a ton of depth. They have a ton of young stars between Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, have some really good, and they're really not that young anymore. They're really kind of hitting their prime. All 3 of those guys, Scotty Barnes a little bit on the younger side of those 3, but all 3 kind of starting to hit their prime. Play really well together. Great team defense. Their coach is just locked in. He's dialed in. Like, I see some of his pregame speeches and some of the things he's saying to media, and it makes me want to go run through a brick wall for that guy. So I think that it's going to be a hard-fought battle. We've seen James Harden with his struggles in the playoffs. I think the Cavs they're better than the Magic, but they're in that similar boat to, we saw them last year. We thought there was going to be this big step forward. Maybe the Cavs are the team to beat coming out of the East this year. And they had to kind of make a desperation trade for James Harden about halfway through the season, trying to make that work. It fits okay. Obviously, he's a great player, a little bit older now there with Donovan Mitchell. But I just don't see them as a super cohesive team. I don't love Mitchell and Harden defensively on the defensive end being paired together, particularly against the perimeter weapons that the Raptors have. So I think the Toronto Raptors are going to go into Cleveland, maybe win I think they're going to win one of the first 2 games there. Probably I would put my money on winning that first game, kind of coming in with that shock factor. And then I think they're going to control their home games. And I have the Raptors beating the Cavs in 6. So that's how we are starting on the top half of the Eastern bracket. And then one that's going to be super interesting that I think could be a potential another upset there in the East is the Hawks versus Knicks series. So the Knicks is the 3 seed, Hawks is the 6 seed. They're coming in. The Hawks are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, I believe. Either best record in the NBA or best record in the Eastern Conference. Said it's like mid-January or something like that. So they've been really rolling. Jalen Johnson is starting to come into his own. I think he's going to kind of make a name for himself. People haven't had a chance to watch much of Jalen Johnson a lot in this at this point. So they'll have a chance to see him in the playoffs, and he'll have a chance to kind of make a name for himself, along with Nickeil Walker-Alexander for the Hawks, 2 guys that are good players, but I don't think many people nationally know a ton about. So we'll have a chance to see them on this big stage. We will get a chance to see them go into MSG, which is obviously a super tough place to play. And I think this one's going to go 6 or 7. I think this was going to be one of those long series here in the first round. And I do have the Knicks winning this one, again, in 6 or 7. I think offensively, Atlanta's really, really good defensively, and I think they're going to cause lots of problems, particularly when they're home in Atlanta for the Knicks on the offensive end, because the Knicks are already not super great offensive team. But I think overall, I think it comes down to if you need a get-a-bucket guy, you're looking at Jalen Johnson or probably more so Nickeil Walker-Alexander versus Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks are just favored in that I need a guy to go get a bucket matchup in kind of those positions. And I think that's a huge part of playoff basketball. The pace is going to slow down a little bit. The defensive intensity is going to ramp up. And a lot of these games are going to come down to, do I have a guy in the last 2-3 minutes who, when we need it, can go down and get us a bucket pretty much at any point that we need. And I think the Knicks have more of those guys, definitely in Jalen Brunson, than the Hawks do. And so I think that's going to be the main difference in this series. But I think this one's going to be super fun and entertaining. I would not be shocked at all if we saw the Hawks go in and win game 1 there in MSG. Kind of put a scare. All of a sudden, you're having flashbacks to the Trae Young Hawks years and things like that for Knicks fans. And so I would not be shocked at all to see that. But I think over the course of that series, I think the Knicks' overall talent and scoring ability is going to wear them out, and they will come away with that one in 6 or 7. So Knicks winning that series. And then our last series on the Eastern side is the Celtics versus 76ers. And particularly with the Joel Embiid injury, I really love Tyrese Maxey. Don't love a ton of the rest of the roster for the Sixers. And I don't see this going past 5. I see the Celtics, the way that they're rolling, the way Tatum has come back and just fit in seamlessly with their roster, with the way that they were playing beforehand. I don't see them slowing down anytime. They have that championship pedigree and experience. Obviously, last year, losing in the second round to the Knicks, I think that's going to be great motivation for the Celtics. I don't think they're going to be overlooking any opponents. And again, if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum stay healthy, which of course is a question mark with Tatum coming off his injury, you hope that he holds up. But in the back of your head, you have to know that there could be potential re-injury possibility with him. But all in all, I think the Celtics are just too deep. I think having home court advantage, obviously huge for them. TD Garden gets rocking. And I just don't see the 76ers having enough firepower to really stay with them. I could, again, see them winning maybe that 3rd or 4th game when you go back to Philadelphia, get the home crowd behind you, have a hot shooting night. But I don't see them winning more than 1 game. So I have the Celtics in 5 over the 76ers. And what I'll do is I'll just go right to the Western Conference. We'll go through our first rounds, and then we'll move from there. And then I'll wrap this up, and we'll try. I won't go super, super in-depth to all of this as we go. But Thunders versus winner of Suns Warriors. I already kind of touched on this earlier as I talked about the Warriors. I don't think we have to give you too much analysis on this. I have the Thunder winning probably in 4. And maybe if both the Suns and the Warriors, maybe there's same type of thing, 3rd, 4th game, particularly if it's the Warriors. I could see Curry and Draymond having that pride of we are not going to get swept in a series. I don't think Curry's ever been swept in a series. So if they are to make it there, that would potentially be the first time potential that Curry could ever get swept in a series. But I don't see that if they do. But regardless, I have the Thunder coming out of that first round matchup in 4 or 5 games. And then our next matchup on the other side of that bracket is the Lakers versus the Rockets, which This one pains me. I have not been a big Rockets fan all year. Obviously, with the injuries to Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams early on in the season, they were left without a point guard. The team's kind of been, had such great expectations coming into it, have kind of faltered and never quite lived up to those expectations. And Kevin Durant is still great, but the team itself almost just kind of feels like a collection of good parts that isn't super cohesive. So I'm not super high on the Rockets, but I'm higher than them. Than the current Lakers roster at the moment. So obviously, LeBron James, he's over my shoulder here in this poster. One of the greatest of all time. I think the greatest player of all time. If you actually had to put a lie detector test to me, I'd probably pick him over Curry, even though I prefer Curry. And I do think the way he's playing, I think he's shown with Luka and Reeves going down that he can still be that number one option. And any given game and any given couple days stretch. But I think at age 41, I wouldn't be shocked if LeBron surprises me on this, but I don't see him being able to carry that Lakers team, which doesn't have a great roster outside of him, Luka and Reeves. And so you're missing 2/3 of that trio. And I don't see them having the depth and the ability to be the Rockets. So I'd like to say I think I can see LeBron willing that Lakers team to about 2 wins probably in this series. I think if he gives us some throwback performances, he could get them a win or 2. And again, with the anticipation that Luka and Reeves are not going to be back anytime soon, definitely not back during this series, I think you're going to have to go with the Rockets in this one, probably again in 5 or 6. I'm going to go with 6 and give LeBron and the Lakers the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be able to will them to 2 wins. So I have the Rockets advancing, kind of a little caveat there, because if the Lakers didn't have all these end-of-season injuries that have kind of derailed them, then I'd be feeling way differently than that and would maybe even be picking the Lakers to upset the Thunder in the following round. But I've got the Rockets taking on the Lakers in 6. And then we're moving down to the other side of the bracket. You have the Spurs versus the Trailblazers as the 2-7 matchup. And again, I think the Trailblazers have been playing really well down the stretch here. A young, exciting team with a big upside. I think they kind of surprised a lot of people with how consistent they were this year, how good they played. They kind of surprised me in that play-in game against Phoenix. I thought Phoenix was going to go in there with Devin Booker and Grayson Allen, some of those veterans, and kind of steamroll the young Portland Trailblazers. But whether it be Drew Holiday's leadership or whatever that is there, they've got something rolling. Denny Advia's playing awesome. Shaedon Sharpe and some of those other young guys on the roster have really started to blossom, particularly here towards the end of this season, which is really cool. I still have the Spurs. I have them beating the Trailblazers here. I probably, again, I see you maybe, given all that stuff I just said about the Blazers, same type of thing. I can maybe see them going home to Portland in front of home fans, maybe winning that 3rd or 4th game. But this is another one where I've got the Spurs in 5, beating the Trailblazers. And then that leaves us with the Nuggets Timberwolves, which I think has been, from what I've seen, kind of a trendy upset series pick. A lot of people think the Wolves have a chance to take down the Nuggets like we saw 2 years ago with Edwards in 7 games against the Nuggets, taking them down following their championship. And so that's been a really trendy pick. I don't really see it this year. Obviously, if Ant Edwards comes back and he is looking like fully healthy Anthony Edwards, just like all of our good players in the league, you have a chance if your best player, your star player, is fully healthy, playing as good as he can. I just don't think the Timberwolves have the same depth that they had when the last time they played the Nuggets. And I think the Nuggets have a little bit more depth. And the biggest thing for them probably is that they're healthier than when they played 2 years ago in the playoffs and the Timberwolves beat them. So I think between Aaron Gordon, the way that he's playing, he's really been the X factor. We talk a lot, obviously, about Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray making his first All-Star appearance this year. We always kind of talk about those two as the tandem in Denver. But I think Aaron Gordon has absolutely been the big X factor for him. Hitting threes, incredible defense on the other end, and has just been a huge spark plug for them. Brings obviously that athleticism, but his ability to shoot threes this year and his improvement on the outside game this year has really brought them to another level, in my opinion, and I think they've been playing great down the stretch. So I've got the Nuggets rolling the Timberwolves. I've got them beating them in 5 and moving on to the second round where they're going to play the Spurs, who probably messed up by not beating them when they had a chance. But we'll get back to that. So in the West, we've got Thunder, Rockets, Nuggets, and Spurs. And then in the East, we've got Pistons, Raptors on the upset. We've got the Knicks narrowly beating the Hawks and the Celtics over the 76ers. So as we move into that second round there in the Eastern Conference, I think the Raptors' magic runs out against Detroit. Again, there's a lot of talk, and again, including myself, Detroit's young. It's hard to trust young teams in the playoffs. but there's not a lot of proven, experienced teams that have made super deep runs in the Eastern Conference this year, and Boston, who is that team, is on the other side of the bracket from them as the 2 seed. So I see Detroit making it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, despite what many people think that they are a potential upset pick or an upset alert against the Cavs or the Raptors there in that second round. I don't see it as much. I think Cade is going to be at that point probably about 2.5, 3 weeks fully back from his collapsed lung situation, so he'll be back in a groove and back in his rhythm. And again, I think the way they defend, their depth and their energy, they have a very similar, they're different, but it's that same type of OKC feel from last year and 2 years ago where they just kind of come in waves and they keep going and they're young and they are relentless. So I have Detroit making it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and repeat of Knicks Celtics from last season. And I've got the Celtics coming out on top. I think even with the Tatum injury last year, this was a super close series that was really kind of anyone's series game to game. It could go either way. And we saw the Knicks obviously coming out with some pretty crazy finishes in that one. So I don't see that happening again this year. I think the Celtics, again, between the motivation of that loss last season, Tatum coming back from injury, looking to prove that he is still one of the top guys in the league, and just the way that they've been coached, and the Celtics depth. I mean, they are as deep as it gets. They've had a chance to play guys that are deeper in their rotation here the last couple weeks and throughout the season with Tatum's injury. And so they've blossomed. Guys like Baylor Shireman, Luka Garza come in and play great minutes for the Celtics. So I have them taking down the Knicks. I don't think that series is going to be particularly close either. I have both of my Eastern Conference semifinals being 5, maximum 6 games. I think Detroit's going to win in 5, and I'll give the Knicks an extra game, and I'm going to pick the Celtics to beat the Knicks in 6. Okay, so we've got a Detroit versus Boston Eastern Conference Finals. And on the Western side, like I just talked, I'm not super high on the Rockets, despite thinking they're going to win that first round matchup against the Lakers. I do have them falling to the Thunder in 4 or 5. I think the Thunder are going to just pretty much cakewalk to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think there's going to be much of a threat on that side of the bracket, which again, maybe could have been Denver or San Antonio had things finished up the last game of the regular season a little differently in that San Antonio-Denver matchup, but it didn't. This is where we're at, and so I think OKC, we'll give the Rockets maybe 1 game. A Kevin Durant masterpiece. It will be against his former team if we do get that matchup, which that aspect of it would be pretty cool. But I have the Thunder beating the Rockets in 5. And then on the bottom side of the bracket, this is where I've touched on it obviously here the last couple minutes. The Spurs had the Nuggets in the last regular season game, played Nikola Jokic for about 15 minutes and then sat him so that he could be eligible for his MVP awards and all that stuff, post-season awards. And the Spurs decided to, despite playing him on Friday, rest Wemby, rest some of their starters, not try to win that game. And now the Nuggets, instead of falling to the 4 seed and flip-flopping with the Lakers, who are super injury-riddled, the Spurs lost that game. Denver stays at the 3 seed, and now those two are going to have to get matched up here in the second round. Obviously, Wemby is incredible, and on the defensive end is unlike anything we've ever seen before. But the one player that we've been able to see all throughout their matchups this season that has had great success against them has really kind of been his Achilles heel in terms of who he can defend and cause problems for, has been Nikola Jokic. And so I think this is going to be an awesome, awesome series if we get it. I really hope that we do get this one. Again, I anticipate that we will, but I have the Nuggets beating the Spurs in 6. I have them stealing one of those games in San Antonio, going home, handling their business, and then winning in Denver in 6. So I have them taking down the Spurs, just a little bit too young right now. And again, I think kind of screwed up there in that last game of the regular season by not beating Denver to give themselves better positioning here in the bracket. So that leaves us with a Thunder and Nuggets Western Conference Championship. And then going back to the East, where we have Detroit versus Boston. This is where I think Detroit's inexperience up against a team that has won an NBA championship, particularly at that point, Tatum will have been back for several months, will be rolling. He'll have had a little playoff run underneath him to get those legs back. And I think between him, Jaylen Brown's experience as a finals MVP, Joe Mazzulla's experience winning a championship, and then the rest of the depth on that roster, I think that is where it's going to end up being too much for Detroit. And I think that's where you're going to see that youth starting to show for Detroit. And I have the Celtics beating them in 6 games, similar to what I just said with the Nuggets and Spurs. I have them winning a game on the road in Detroit and then handling their business in the home games and winning that series to make another NBA Finals here at the end of the season for the Boston Celtics coming out of the East. So the Celtics are my Eastern pick. And then the Thunder cakewalk their way all the way to the Western Conference Finals, but they don't have enough to make it over the hump and get to the finals. I think we're going to have an absolute thriller of a Nuggets versus Thunder. I'm going 7-game series, and I think that the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic are going to be cold-blooded, go into Oklahoma City in that Game 7, and I think they're going to rip out OKC fans' hearts and get themselves back to the NBA Finals to face off against the Boston Celtics, which, if we do get that matchup, that will be the first of all these teams since the 2018 Warriors. We've had a new champion every single year since that Warriors championship, starting with the Toronto Raptors in 2019. So we'll see if one of these teams, if we get that matchup, obviously one of them with Jokic and the Nuggets or Tatum and the Celtics, one of those two teams and players will be getting their second NBA championship, which would be kind of the first for this new era of star players. So I've got a Nuggets versus Celtics finals, and my NBA playoff winner, NBA champion prediction is the Denver Nuggets. I think Nikola Jokic has shown that he's the best player in the world. We've seen runs with LeBron James, with Steph Curry. When you are that best player, second best player in the world, playing at your absolute best, and you have other teammates with Jamal Murray making his first All-Star team, Aaron Gordon shooting the best three-point percentage he's shot in his career, as well as providing that excellent two-way defense on the other end. I think the Denver Nuggets are going to be too much. They're playing really great basketball here at the end of the season, and I think Nikola Jokic is going to remind us all of why he is the best player in the league, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can keep probably his 2 MVPs that he's likely about to win his second, and I think Nikola Jokic is going to go ahead and win his second NBA championship, which we know means a lot more to him. Maybe horses are about the only thing that maybe matters more to him than just winning these basketball games. So I have the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic winning the 2026 NBA championship over the Boston Celtics. And I'll give it 6 games. I'm going to give it 6 games that the Denver Nuggets will win. So that's my NBA playoff predictions. Thanks so much for taking the time. If you are here on YouTube watching this, again, I really appreciate it. And make sure to throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, give me a comment, tell me where you think I'm wrong, tell me what you think is going to be NBA champion, give me your predictions for some of these rounds. Would love to hear from all you guys, and enjoy your viewing this weekend. Should be some really awesome games starting tonight, Friday, with the play-in games, and into the weekend with just a full slate of NBA basketball. So again, appreciate you being here. This is Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey, and we will talk to you guys next Tuesday.